The room hummed with tension. Cameras flashed like lightning across a storm of ambition and ego. In the center, beneath the glare of white lights and restless eyes, Ivanka Trump leaned toward the microphone, poised, polished but sharp as a blade. Her voice cut through the air, smooth yet loaded. With all due respect, Mr. President, what did all your speeches really change? For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the hall. A murmur rippled through the audience. Disbelief, intrigue, a touch of delight. Journalists leaned closer. Advisors froze. It wasn't just a question. It was a challenge wrapped in charm. Barack Obama didn't move right away. He simply lifted his gaze, steady and unhurried. The years of scrutiny, the weight of battles fought with words instead of weapons, settled behind his calm eyes. The crowd waited the stillness before a storm. Ivanka's smile lingered, confident, expecting hesitation. But Obama's silence stretched, not weak, but powerful. Then, with a faint, knowing grin, he began to speak. His tone carried no anger, no ego, just truth sharpened by history. What Obama said next would echo far beyond that room, redefine what leadership sounds like. It wasn't just another conference. It was the Global Leadership Forum, where cameras never blinked and every word carried the weight of history. The theme that day: generational responsibility and power. Leaders from every continent gathered to discuss the future, yet somehow, the world's eyes were fixed on just two people. On one side stood Ivanka Trump, the embodiment of inherited influence. Immaculate in posture, every movement rehearsed to radiate grace. To her supporters, she was elegance meeting ambition, proof that privilege could wear a smile. But to critics, she represented the America of gilded access. Doors opened not by struggle, but by surname. Across from her sat Barack Obama, the living contrast. Calm, composed, carrying the quiet gravity of a man who had walked through fire to earn his voice. His legacy wasn't polished into him. It was built, speech by speech, choice by choice, mistake by mistake. Online. Hashtags were already erupting. Hashtag the clash of perspectives. Hashtag Power V's principle. Commentators called it a generational collision. The modern torch handover. The moment America would measure itself. The audience inside the hall could feel it too. That rare, electric sense that something unscripted was about to unfold. And when Ivanka leaned forward with that question, crisp, cutting, and impossibly public, every breath in the room paused. But no one expected her question to cross the line, or his answer to silence the world, before that summit ever began. Ivanka Trump had already mastered the art of presence. Cameras loved her, the poise within the poise, a figure sculpted for the modern age of optics. She had built an empire on grace under pressure, her name synonymous with poised professionalism. To her audience, she was more than a last name. She was the embodiment of control, calm and calculated charm. In the White House, she had spoken of empowerment, responsibility, and progress. Her speeches flawlessly delivered, perfectly lit, painted visions of equality and inclusion. But too many, they felt distant, like reflections in glass. Ideas without the grit of experience. Policies without the pulse of the people they were meant to serve. Her confidence was never in question. She was born into a world that taught her how to win a room before ever having to earn it. The media called her America's polished diplomat. But critics whispered that her diplomacy lived mostly in front of cameras. Her words often carried the tone of someone who understood the vocabulary of struggle, but not the feeling of it. And yet Ivanka wasn't malicious. She was strategic, raised to believe that image was power, that optics could outlast authenticity. When she walked into the Global Leadership Forum that day, it wasn't arrogance that guided her. It was conviction that she could stand, toted with one of the most respected orators of a generation. To her, the summit was a proving ground. A stage to show that legacy could be as commanding as leadership, that polish could rival principle. Her question wasn't meant to provoke war. It was meant to assert relevance, to remind the world that her voice, too, belonged in the conversation. But beneath that confidence lay a quiet tension, a subconscious awareness that every word would be measured. against a man who had lived the struggles she'd only ever spoken about. She had faced critics before, but this time, her challenge wasn't about politics. It was about perspective, ChatGPT said, long before the cameras, the headlines, and the history books. Barack Obama was simply a young man raised by a mother who believed that decency was a form of power. His story began far from privilege, a boy navigating two worlds, learning early that understanding people was more valuable than outshining them. His mother's lessons, his grandparents' discipline, his years as a community organizer on Chicago's South Side, they shaped a man who knew that leadership wasn't inherited. It was earned in small, unseen moments. He built his path not through wealth or connections, but through the quiet conviction that ideas could move nations. Every criticism he endured, from the early campaigns to the presidency, taught him patience instead of pride. Where others responded with outrage, he learned to breathe, to wait, to let the truth reveal itself. The world called it calm. He called it control to those who watched him rise. His composure became legend, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. His speeches resonated because they came from scars, not scripts. From a man who had faced skepticism at every turn, and yet never let bitterness shape his tone. Even now, seated on that summit stage, he carried the same quiet authority, not in the way he spoke, but in the way he listened. Every word from Ivanka, every camera flash, every breath in the room, all filtered through the discipline of a man who understood that ego never wins the long game. And as her challenge hung in the air, he didn't flinch. He didn't rush. Because Barack Obama knew that power isn't in the volume of your voice, it's in the weight of your pause. And that calm, that unshakable stillness would become the moment's turning point. Back in the packed summit hall, the tension felt almost physical, like the air itself was leaning forward to listen. Ivanka, still poised, still immaculate, wasn't backing down. Her voice carried that sharp, polished certainty that had made her a media darling. With respect, she said, her smile tight but controlled, inspiration isn't a plan. Don't we need results, not rhetoric? A flicker of agreement rippled through a section of the audience. Executives, strategists, those who measured success in numbers and optics. Others shifted in their seats, uneasy at her tone. The cameras caught every twitch, every smirk, every unreadable glance. Obama didn't move. For a long, deliberate second, he simply looked at her, not with irritation, but with the calm curiosity of a teacher waiting for a student to see the flaw in their own question. The silence stretched, the audience holding its breath, the press lenses tightening their focus. Then, with a voice that carried more gravity than volume, he said, "Results without purpose aren't leadership. They're management." A low murmur rolled across the room. It wasn't applause yet, just that collective sound people make when they realize they've heard something that might linger. Ivanka blinked, her expression still polite. But her rhythm faltered. Obama leaned slightly forward now, his tone deepening. Deliberate, not attacking, but anchoring. The world doesn't just need people who can build systems. It needs people who remember why they're building them. The murmurs grew louder, a wave of agreement, disbelief. Even the moderators glanced at one another, unsure whether to intervene or let history breathe. But Obama wasn't finished. His next line would stop her, and the room cold. Obama's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The power wasn't in the volume. It was in the precision. Every syllable landed like it had been waiting years to be spoken. "Leadership," he began. His tone, measured, almost intimate, isn't about building towers. It's about building people. Ow. The audience froze. The metaphor was unmistakable. Even Ivanka felt it, the weight behind the words, the deliberate echo of her father's empire. He paused, letting silence sharpen the point before continuing. "When your success depends on others staying silent," he said, his eyes fixed gently but firmly on her. "That's not leadership, that's luxury." The air fractured into 1,000 flashes. Cameras went off like lightning in a summer storm. No one coughed, no one whispered. Even Ivanka's poised smile flickered, the first visible crack. She drew a breath, ready to respond, but Obama raised a hand slightly, not to silence, but to finish the thought that had already silenced the room. If your power was inherited, said slowly, your challenge is to earn it every day. Because real leaders don't need to remind people who they are. It hit like truth wrapped in velvet. No anger, no arrogance, just authority earned the hard way. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. For a full heartbeat, nothing happened. Then someone clapped. One person, then another. The sound spread, rolling across the hall like a storm breaking through still air. Applause slow, rising, unstoppable. The moderator tried and failed to hide a grin. Even journalists, those who usually pretended neutrality, exchanged glances that said, "We just witnessed something historic." Phones went up, live feeds streaming, captions already forming, Obama's calmest takedown ever. On social media, within minutes, hashtags lit up timelines across continents. Leadership defined, mic drop moment, earn it every day. The clip replayed endlessly, Obama's calm face, Ivanka's still silence. The echo of that final line replaying like a mantra. Even those who disagreed politically couldn't deny it. This wasn't a victory of ideology. It was a victory of composure, of moral weight over inherited polish. And as the crowd's applause swelled into a standing ovation, Ivanka could only sit, her expression thoughtful, perhaps realizing that charisma could capture attention. But character commanded respect. And in one sentence, he transformed a confrontation into a masterclass on humility. By morning, the world had caught its breath. Obama responds. One sentence silence. Leadership defined, trended across continents, filling feeds, timelines, and news tickers with a single, undeniable truth. The calmest words often carry the heaviest weight. Television anchors replayed the clip endlessly, dissecting every inflection, every pause. Commentators called it a poetic dismantling, marveling at the precision of a leader who didn't need volume to command a room. Podcasts analyzed it. Think pieces were drafted. And the moment became a lesson in restraint, dignity, and earned authority. Online, debates erupted. Some defended Ivanka's challenge, arguing that ambition must be questioned, even publicly. Others praised Obama's restraint, insisting that true leadership isn't measured by rebuttals, but by the quiet demonstration of principle. Social media was alive with quotes, retweets, and threads. Leadership isn't about towers. It's about people, a masterclass in calm, one sentence that speaks louder than centuries of rhetoric, even critics. Those who might normally dismiss his every move found themselves nodding, reluctant but honest. That was a line for history, they admitted. The applause from the summit hadn't faded. It had simply migrated online, rippling through communities, classrooms, and workplaces. Emotionally, it was a rare convergence, admiration, reflection, and an almost tangible unity through respect. People were talking not about political sides, but about values, about what it truly means to lead. But beyond the viral storm, something deeper had changed how people defined power itself. This wasn't about politics. It never was. What unfolded on that stage transcended party lines, speeches, or headlines. It was about principle, the quiet strength that refuses to be shaken by bravado, the moral clarity that speaks louder than any inherited title. Obama's words became more than a retort. They became a mirror for anyone who had ever been underestimated, dismissed, or overshadowed by the ease of privilege. Every pause, every carefully chosen phrase, reminded the world that true leadership isn't measured by wealth, influence, or optics. It's measured by impact, by empathy, by the lives you uplift. Leadership, he had once said, isn't measured by what you have, but by who you lift. That line echoed through the summit, through social feeds, through minds and hearts hungry for a model of dignity over dominance. It was a reminder that character outlasts entitlement, that restraint outweighs spectacle, that the quiet power of integrity endures when noise fades. Because in a world that rewards noise, calm is the rarest power of all. The applause faded. Headlines still flashing across screens worldwide. If you believe leadership is earned, not inherited, share this story, the narrator urged. Because silence can be the loudest victory.